Middleweight bout here. Bruno Silva coming in at plus 190 against the debuting Sharabutdin Magomedov, sitting at minus 230. Over under 1.5 rounds. Minus 130 for the over. Even money on the under. The undefeated Sharabutdin, or Sharabullet, I should say, 11-0. And you see the height there, 6'2". Bruno Silva, 2-3 in his last 5. 34 years of age for him. He's coming in here. It's an interesting matchup, like right off the bat, to throw Magomedov against Bruno Silva, who's been fighting some pretty top-level guys. I mean, he just lost to Brendan Allen, and he's fought Alex Pereira, and he's fought Brad Tavares, knocked out Brad Tavares. He's kind of been up and down. Like the wins he had early on in his UFC career, kind of the bottom of the barrel. Wellington Turman, Andrew Sanchez, Jordan Wright. Face him up against Pereira, loses a decision. Then everyone's high on him going up against Gerald Meerschaert, and he just completely looks terrible and actually should have got knocked out by Gerald Meerschaert, but Meerschaert throws in the guillotine and then knocks out Brad Tavares and then gets subbed by Brendan Allen. Got knocked down in that one as well. Based on his official results, he's never been knocked out. But he's been knocked down and then subbed. So it's like the chin isn't like some granite chin where this guy can just take a shot and be unfazed. He can get phased by shots, but he just eventually gives his neck instead of getting TKO'd. So, if you're looking at the stats, you look into him a little bit more. But in this one against Magomedov, like this is a guy that people have been talking about because he looks scary. He's got the crazy eye. And a lot of his KOs are pretty, viral KOs where you can look at it and be like, oh my God, this guy looks pretty crazy. Coming in as a favorite, though, in his debut against a guy who's been fighting, top 15 guys. So it's an interesting one. What do you think?
I'm so excited for this fight. And first of all, props to the UFC for making this the first fight on the prelims. Like, this is how they should open up every single card. Normally, it's a lower level women's MMA or two debuters, but here, like, you're getting violence from the get-go in this fight. You're getting two strikers, two guys who have knockouts. I mean, Sharabutdin, 11 wins, 0 losses, 10 KOs on his record. That just screams like excitement, and I'm excited to watch him fight. But Bruno Silva, 4-3 in the UFC, and all 4 of his wins are by KO too. I think for this, Bruno, it depends how he comes out in this fight. In all of his losses, like, he's not aggressive. Like against Brendan Allen, he wasn't real aggressive. He kind of backing up. Same thing with Gerald Meerschaert. Only landed 29 significant strikes in that fight. When he's the striker and Gerald's the grappler. Gerald's one who knocked him down, got the submission after that. And against Alex, that's kind of an excusable loss because of how good Alex Pereira is. And he wasn't, he showed toughness in that fight, even though he kind of got beat around pretty good. But if he comes out aggressive here and really looks to be the aggressor and the one marching forward in this fight, I think he could have some success. Sharabutdin, if you watch his tape, he's got a lot of highlight KOs. He lands really good shots. He's really good with the kicks, but he also gets hit when he's trying to land those kicks at times. Other times, he's not really getting hurt in there, but guys are finding the chin. And guys like Bruno Silva hold a lot of power and have been fighting at the UFC level for a bit now. So that makes it interesting. Sharabutdin too. It just seems like lately when these guys have a lot of hype, it's a little much pressure when they get into the UFC and they get into the fight. And sometimes they just can't handle it or they weren't ready. Like, I'm really surprised the UFC is giving him a guy like Bruno Silva, who has 7 UFC fights, who has a ton of power and can crack the chin of anybody he fights. Sharabutdin should be a guy they want to build and make a name off of. And now you're kind of risking him to, have a bad first performance against a decent opponent. So super interesting stuff. I do think if Magomedov handles everything well and holds his composure in there, he should, cruise to a win here, be the better striker, probably more technical striker, and land, I think, the cleaner shots. But there's just always that off chance with Silva that he does find your chin and he puts you out. So it's interesting. It's betting wise, it's like, do I take the dog here? If I take the dog and he loses, I look extremely stupid, and people are going to say, yeah, Shara is the future. What were you thinking? Type of thing. But again, it could go to where, Bruno Silva shocks everybody, and Magomedov just wasn't ready for this level of competition. So I'm going to take Sharabutdin. I do think he is really good. Like you watch his tape and his credentials and everything and striking are top tier and really, really good. And his opponent's combined records are good too. It's not like he's fighting complete bums or anything. But man, Bruno Silva could be a live dog early in this fight.
Yeah, I'm shocked they made this matchup too. If you look at the betting odds, Bruno Silva was actually less of an underdog against Alex Pereira, which is interesting. But the way this fight goes, it's like Bruno Silva does a lot of work with the hands. Magomedov does a lot of work with the kicks. He really fights behind the kicks and really tries to keep you at range with them, and then will blitz with the hands and hit you hard. If Bruno Silva, the way he fights is usually pretty downhill. I mean, he kind of just throws a lot at you, and if he hits you, like you're gonna feel it. Like he's got a ton of KOs on his record, so it's a scary opponent to go up against in your debut. But Magomedov has been fighting some pretty solid guys on the regional scene. Like 21-5, 16-4, and he's winning these fights. So it really just speaks to like where the UFC sees this guy moving forward. If they're going to match him up with Bruno Silva off the rip, I'm really interested to watch this one and see what happens. I don't know if I could get to that chalk on Sharabutdin, and Bruno Silva is definitely going to be live early. But once again, it's one of these fights where you're probably going to feel out where these odds should be within the first like minute or two. You're like, is Bruno Silva landing? Is Magomedov piecing him up with the kicks early? Something like that. So for the pick, I'll go with Magomedov. But it's a sketchy one to start your night. I almost like the under better just because Bruno Silva, the way he wins fights is like just come forward early and make the guy uncomfortable. Sharabutdin could definitely crack him early and put him out. Bruno Silva could put him out early as well. So that's probably a route I might look for instead of taking a side in this one. But for the pick, I'll take Magomedov.